Contaminants analysis in food and feed is really important because we can ill afford to get contaminants into the food chain. The sort of customers that send work to Marchwood within the food and feed domain are companies that handle commodities. Commodities that have been exposed to heat treatment, dioxins, heavy metals, PAHs, these are all sorts of heat treatment. Also commodities that have been exposed to different storage conditions in different continents, so we look for mycotoxins. And also we look at commodities that have been treated, like grains and cereal, for pesticides. In the UK, there's nobody else that can do this type of analysis and offer it on a quick turnaround.
Marchwood has a separate laboratory for performing analysis of food feed for dioxins, furans and PCBs. These present separate requirements from other tests, such as environmental, due to the varied nature of food feed analysis. This can range anywhere from oil samples, feed samples, or food samples themselves, such as meat, poultry or eggs, and also on feed materials such as additives, so inorganic feed materials, organic feed materials, or the final product.
If a sample comes into the laboratory, we first of all, we log it in sample receipt, and at this point the sample gets a unique identifier, a unique reference number, and then we schedule it for tests based on what the customer wants. Now the customer will want testing on this sample due to current legislation. So for example, if it needs pesticides, mycotoxins, dioxins and metals, we log it in for that. And then the sample gets split off and it goes to the separate laboratories to carry out the analysis.
Samples also are required to be homogenised upon receipt at the laboratory, and given the varied nature of food feed samples, this can require blending or macerating or dissolving with heat to make them into a consistent sample. Food feed samples are extracted using a range of techniques, including succinylate extraction, accelerated solvent extraction and dissolution, based on their varied nature.
The speed of a sample going through the laboratory is again based on what the customer wants. Sometimes a boat will be stuck on a dock somewhere in the world, so they'll need the results the next day. Or sometimes it's part of a quality assurance scheme, so they're happy with about a 10-day turnaround.
The food feed industry is heavily regulated, given the number of matrices and sub-matrices required. Each one has its own regulatory limit applied, and our reports are assessed against the regulatory limits before dispatch to the customer to ensure that they meet requirements.
There's a massive demand for contaminants analysis on food and feed worldwide, and Marchwood are set up to do the analysis quickly and reliably.